let's talk about President Trump and Elon Musk drive to reshape the government now, okay? Because President Elon Musk is fairly devastating. Oh, here, if you want to get mad, here's President Elon Musk. White South Africans are being persecuted for their race in their home country. Also, white South Africans are one of the few population groups that are fiscally positive when immigrating to Europe. We should allow more immigration of white South Africans. Elon Musk, who's anti-immigration and constantly talks about how immigrants are bad, does not have an issue with white South Africans immigrating. Now, of course, this statement that white South Africans are being persecuted for the race in their home country is, of course, ridiculous. They make up 7% of the population in South Africa, and yet they'll maintain approximately 90% of all of the valuable land. They own approximately 90% of that. The South African government has tried to combat this a little bit with, land reallocation and whatnot, and that's precisely what they're talking about in terms of the racial violence that whites in South Africa are experiencing. All right.
.org, I'm Amy Goodman. The top-ranking career U.S. Treasury Department official, David LeBret, has been forced out of the agency after he resisted a demand by Elon Musk and his associates at Doge to gain access to the government's vast payment system, which disperses trillions of dollars in federal payments each year. Trump's new Treasury Secretary, the billionaire Scott Bessent, ended up giving Musk access to the system, which includes sensitive information about taxpayers, Social Security recipients, government contractors, including Musk's rivals. Musk is also accused of waging a takeover at the Office of Person.
So you're not denying it? You're just saying it's nowhere near as bad as it's made out to be? No, I think it's very bad. What do you mean nowhere near as bad as it's made out to be? It's re-education camps and mass surveillance. It's dragnet operations upon an entire population group. And the claims made by the government at the time was, well, there are Muslim radical separatists out there that want to cut off Xinjiang from the rest of China, and they're engaging in terror attacks like mass stabbing incidents and whatnot. That in and of itself is unjustifiable. That method of dealing with it is completely unjustifiable. It's collective punishment, okay? And it is indefensible. Having said that, however, they were not wiping out entire city blocks with multiple nukes worth of munitions.
Management, where career civil servants have been locked out of computer systems. For more, we're joined by two guests. Waleed Shahid is Democratic strategist. His new piece on Substack is headlined, Elon Musk is staging a coup. Waleed was previously the spokesperson for Justice Democrats and former senior advisor for the campaigns of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Jamal Bowman. We're also joined in Washington, D.C. by Lindsay Owens, executive director of the Groundwork Collaborative, who says there are several reasons Musk wants to control Treasury payments. None of them are good. Okay. Waleed Shahid, let's begin with you. What do you mean that Elon Musk is staging a coup?
So if this story was taking place somewhere in Central Asia or in Africa, the United States media, the United States State Department, international institutions would likely refer to this as a coup. A billionaire industrialist who donated $300 million to a campaign is installing his personal loyalists in key parts of the federal bureaucracy. This is essentially Viktor Orban's playbook. And we need to know, why does a billionaire industrialist with millions in government contracts, military contracts for his private companies need the social security numbers of every American, needs to know what every single check that the U.S. government gives out to businesses, to charities? Why does this billionaire need to know this information? He was not vetted or approved by the U.S. Senate.
Elon wanted a Turkish national to work for Doge. White House said no. Elon Musk wanted to hire a Turkish green card holder at Doge. The message from the West Wing was, we're in the deportation business, and we can't bring in a foreigner to help lay off American federal workers. Oh my God. Musk was hoping to make an exception for Barış Alkuş, a Turkish-born venture capitalist with a green card who had become a close ally. That's brutal. That's doubly brutal.
Has a history of corruption, for using public resources for private gain. He's one of the wealthiest men in the world, and in any other situation, this would be called.
They also have a Canadian, I think, a Canadian national in that position. So I guess it is truly the notion that white people are not, Turkish people are not considered white in the eyes of this administration, at least.
This would be called state capture, and people around the world would be condemning it. But in the United States, we are not used to this kind of level of creeping authoritarianism, of plutocracy.
Actually, I don't even know.
So explicit.
Like, Turks are not considered white, I guess, or rather, they're not a part of the close allegiance that we have to Canada, despite the fact that we were trying to do tariffs not that long ago and want to forcibly annex them potentially. And a not insignificant number of people are also on board with this annexation.
And we need to, this is a as Representative Ocasio-Cortez said last night, this is a 5-alarm fire. Senate Democrats need to be communicating to the American people. And last night there was a call by Indivisible Action for people to visit their senators and call for them to grind the Senate to a halt, to call for investigations, and to know, why does Elon Musk need to know this information? Why is he showing up on Saturday to the offices of the federal government demanding the private information of citizens all around the country?
Well, Lindsay Owens, you say none of the reasons are good. Lay those out.
Yeah, absolutely. So for most Americans, this is the first time that they've ever heard of the Treasury payment system. So what is the Treasury payment system? This is effectively the piece of the federal government that cuts the checks. And they cut a lot of checks. This is $6 trillion a year. Money that goes to individuals as Social Security payments for seniors, money that goes for organizations like Meals on Wheels, to deliver lunches, foreign aid, as well as the funding that the government sets aside for key programs, paying its debts, making sure that we don't breach the debt ceiling and default on our obligations. So this is really unprecedented that Elon Musk has grabbed control of the keys of $6 trillion in payments infrastructure. There are a few reasons this could be happening. The first is, as your viewers know, last week, President Trump tried to end federal spending, just stop federal payments altogether. This was so outrageous and in violation of the Constitution that the courts intervened and said that he couldn't do that. What may be happening here is that Musk may be doing an end run around the courts, going straight to the source so that he can continue to stop those payments that the courts said needed to keep staying online. The second thing that may be happening here is this could just be a good old-fashioned cyber attack. Elon Musk could be interested in the Social Security numbers, the tax ID numbers of tens of millions of Americans. We know that he has partnered with Visa and is considering spinning out a payment system of his own. What we may have here is Elon Musk's attempt to get the private information for his own financial gain. The other thing that is incredibly worrying here is $6 trillion in spending is not just a lot of money, it's a macroeconomically significant amount of money. If Elon Musk starts tinkering with the code, the underlying technology that makes sure these payments go out seamlessly and effectively, he could inadvertently or on purpose bring the macroeconomy to a halt. I mean, this is an incredibly concerning seizure of government infrastructure, but it is also an economically significant moment in the country. So I couldn't agree with Waleed more. I mean, the word coup is the right word to be thinking about here, and Congress must intervene. I mean, if I was a senator, I think the most important thing to do is bring the Secretary of the Treasury to the Senate today to answer questions about what Musk has access to.
So the Treasury Department's
He kept saying he wanted to do WeChat-style payment processing, or Douyin, or whatever it's called. I think in China is WeChat, right? Like everything is on the same application. And he wanted to make X the everything app, okay? And now he's just gonna force you to do it. It feels like, which is crazy. Dude, controversial take, but I trust the Chinese government with my personal information more than I trust Elon Musk. Okay, maybe I'm crazy. Yeah, I like that we're also this is something I mentioned before, but like we're slowly but surely taking all of the worst aspects of Chinese governance and none of the good shit, not realizing that the good shit is kind of what is the glue that holds society together in China. The many benefits, the feeling that your government is at least to a certain degree taking care of you, improving your material conditions, increasingly focusing on massive development projects, a lot of development spending. Okay, every now and then taking out a CEO out back and taking them on a little trip. You know, now, of course, that's oftentimes played along the boundaries of whether or not these big CEOs in China have offended the party or have at least presented themselves as a threat to the party and its grip of control. But even then, still happens. We don't do that at all. No trips for billionaires who are poisoning our water supply. You know what I mean? whether they are ideologically in agreement with the government or not. No high-speed rail, no even development, no building, no long-standing policy for building by need, just simply mass surveillance, repression, social repression, and perhaps more significantly, any kind of political repression being stamped out. Political dissidence is not allowed.
General who could monitor Doge's activities was among the 15 watchdogs who were purged by President Trump. Who's now in charge of or overseeing Musk's team?
Yeah, Musk is in charge. So that's exactly right. Some of the key chokeholds here to make sure that something like this doesn't happen have been moved out of the way, studiously, exactingly moved out of the way. So President Trump fired the Inspector General of the Treasury and the top civil servant of the Treasury Department, the man who was the acting Treasury Secretary between the time that Janet Yellen stepped down and Scott Bessent was confirmed by the Senate, has also been pushed aside, resigned over the fact that he didn't want to give Musk, a private citizen, a billionaire, the keys to the Treasury payment system. So there is very little stopping Musk from taking this over. Trump and Bessent have really, given him a glide path.
So, Waleed Shahid, where is the Democratic Party on this? Where are the Democratic senators and Congress members on this? I mean, you have Hakeem Jeffries, who holds an emergency meeting of the Democrats after a judge stops the federal payments from going out to, stops the ban on federal funding.
So the Democratic Party in Washington is largely asleep at the wheel. They are acting as if they're kind of a librarian shushing noise in a crowded room. They're still believing in the normal procedures, normal decorum, normal...
I think that part is true, but also the Democratic Party is simply kicking back and hoping to collect donations after all of this devastation takes place, hoping that the Republican Party's incompetence will inevitably collapse the delicate allegiances that they've cultivated. And there's some truth to that, especially because there are certain issues where Trump does not care about broad popular sentiment and will push for it regardless, or at least will make a deliberate effort to present this as a good thing, right? Tariffs, tax cuts for the wealthy, things of that nature that will inevitably harm his base of support. But at the end of the day, there are plenty of initiatives that the Trump admin will try to implement and fail to do so, oftentimes due to the internal conflict that exists within the Republican Party. The Democrats are not entirely wrong, I guess, that they suspect this allegiance to collapse, but it is ridiculous that they're not trying to accelerate it through obstruction every step of the way, which is what they should be doing. They should be doing this every step of the way. Virtually every moment is a fantastic opportunity to consistently propagandize austerity and its devastating impact, okay? Collapse of the federal government and regulatory agencies, things that the Democrats are supposed to be tasked with defending. These are opportunities for the Democrats to make a mockery of the Republicans, to present to the American public how inept the Republicans are entirely. Even things that are not immediately in the control of the incoming administration, like fucking planes falling out of the sky. You think Republicans would not use that as an opportunity to shit on the Democrats if it was happening under the Biden administration? Look no further than Palestine, Ohio. That's number one. And number two, the Republicans are so interested in using everything in a disingenuous fashion to do propaganda that they literally immediately went and said, oh, it's DEI. Planes falling out of the sky, it's got to be DEI. Okay? They blame the Democrats immediately. Democrats, on the other hand, are just like, stop hitting me. I don't know what's going on. Please stop hitting me. You, sir, are hypocritical. That's what they're doing. Stop taking the fucking high road, man. What are you doing? Fight back. There's definitely appetite from the broader base of not just the Democratic Party, but like there's plenty of appetite from the base of the Democrats in terms of obstructing the Republican agenda and fighting back against the Republicans. That's number one. Number two, there are plenty of disillusioned voters out there that could be captured, whose attention could be captured, who could be mobilized in the direction, especially if you just showed how devastating the situation really is, okay? And I don't mean talking about January 6th or whatever, okay? Those were failed points of propaganda. They demonstrably failed because Donald Trump won, okay? Meanwhile, we have a gerontocracy where the Democratic Party is led by decrepit old folks that are awful communicators with no real desire to actually fight back against the Trump administration's awful nature, okay? And also, they're so completely removed from the interest of the public after spending decades upon decades within governance, okay? Their only access to the real world, to real American citizens and their needs and their desires are filtered through mainstream media. And mainstream media is also defending regimes in general. They also are out of touch with the needs and the desires because they have the same capitalist interests in maintaining the current existing capitalist hierarchy. Yeah, this is where our opposition is.
Fight, and we will win. 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 We won't rest. We won't rest. We won't rest. We won't rest. Thank you, everybody.
We're so cooked.
That everything here is the normal transition of power. And they still believe that what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing is just a libertarian reform of the government, not an oligarchic, plutocratic takeover of a private billionaire who is seeking to know, potentially seeking to know what his competitors might be doing with government contracts. He has private information that Elon Musk has contracts with international governments all across the world. But the Democratic Party is not able to put forward an opposition message right now because they feel like this is normal. And that's why it's so important for concerned citizens all across the country to twist the arm of your Senate Democrat. Go to their office. If you go to indivisible.org today, you can find a way to join your local chapter. And all around the country, whether your senator is a Republican or a Democrat or independent, they need to hear from concerned citizens because the Democratic Party doesn't move on issues of oligarchy, of plutocracy, of taking action, unless their constituents show up in person and demand that they hold hearings, take the bully pulpit in the media, and also grind the Senate to a halt until we know why does Elon Musk have this information, someone who is not elected.
So the Democratic National Committee on Saturday elected the moderate political insider Ken Martin as chair, despite calls from voters to urgently switch gears and respond to working people's needs following the party's crushing defeat, though it wasn't a major numbers defeat, but it was a defeat in November. What do you think of Ken Martin? Where do you think it's going?
So the DNC is largely at this point a fundraising vehicle for the presidential campaign. I hope that Ken Martin reforms the party to do things like what I'm describing. The Democratic Party should be holding daily press conferences every morning to explain to working class and middle class Americans why it might hurt their pocketbooks for Elon Musk to have this information from the Treasury Department and from the OPM. That Elon Musk has a history of wanting to use public resources for private gain, that Elon Musk is someone who is live tweeting that he wants to cut the federal government's debt every day by billions of dollars, and one of the only ways to do that would be to begin to privatize Social Security. This is what the DNC should be doing. Now, Ken Martin, we had lots of members of the uncommitted movement at the DNC who were being personally bullied by their DNC state parties. And Ken Martin, thankfully, did intervene to make sure that that didn't happen. And so that was my only personal interaction with him. And he went out of his way to make sure that our uncommitted delegation was treated with respect. Other than that, I don't know that much about him, but I'm looking forward to, hopefully he can put together a working class populist agenda for the party that isn't just a fundraising handoff.
So, Lindsay Owens, DOGE is not a formal government agency, right? Which means that it doesn't fall into any category.
Yeah, look, I think when President Trump announced that Elon Musk was going to be running the Department of Government Efficiency, there was a sort of tempting fantasy that maybe Musk, a tech but successful businessman, could come in and restore some efficiency in government, maybe modernize some aspects of government that could use.
Yeah, when I hear stuff like this, I just immediately know that it's not positive. I know that it's basically gutting the government and picking taking it apart for scrap and privatizing it. You know what I mean? Like, I fear that the average American, on the other hand, hears this and goes, well, this seems like a good idea. I like this. It's reasonable.
Some updating. I mean, I think with this weekend's seizure of the...
You don't like efficiency? Not realizing that, of course, these guys are not going to be like, yeah, we want to steal all of the remainder federal agencies like that regulate ours and our businesses that basically keep you alive no matter how stupid you are, okay? And also take advantage of the vast amount of wealth, the remainder of the federal coffers, and redirect all of that faucet of wealth back into our businesses, making it our own personal wallet. They're not going to say that. They're going to be like, oh, we want to maximize the efficiency. We want to maximize the efficiency of the government. The government sucks, right? The federal government is so bad. It's bureaucracy. It's bureaucracy. Obviously, it's bureaucracy. It's funny to do shock doctrine to ourselves and watch the American population clap like seals at the mere sight of it, like pure graft. And Americans are like, no, this is great, actually. I think this is going to yield tremendous bounty for me, a poor worker living in Arkansas.
Treasury payment system. We can be crystal clear in putting that fantasy to bed. This is Musk determining who is going to get funding in this country, what programs are going to be funded in this country. And remember, Musk isn't a disinterested party here. As we've talked about, he has many federal contracts himself, billions of dollars this year alone.
Yeah, Elon Musk is a supervillain, okay? He even looks and sounds like a supervillain. Like, he's both aesthetically supervillain coded, but he also does things that bad people do. So this is yet another perfect opportunity to point to this guy and go, that's the guy. The Democrats still want to maintain their corporate allegiances, okay? And that's precisely the reason why they can't take a populist anti-billionaire stand. And that's precisely the reason why they can't attack Elon Musk without coming across as hypocritical, I guess, which is ironic because Republicans have been doing that by pointing to anti-Semitic conspiracies in perpetuity. Okay, our billionaires are good, theirs are bad. Why? Because their billionaires are Jewish. George Soros. Democrats can't even turn around and be like, their billionaires are South African. You know, just fucking say you're anti-billionaire, man, please.
Loan to his companies, SpaceX, Tesla, and X, formerly known as Twitter. But he also is interested in cutting this funding for a very personal reason, which is he is interested in paying for the tax cuts that Congress is teeing up this year. They're estimating $5 trillion in tax cuts, mostly going to the wealthy and corporations. And Doge is the entity that is supposedly going to find the money, find the savings to pay for those tax cuts. So I think we can sum it up this way. Elon Musk is going to pay for his tax cut.
I've been watching you for around 4 months now. This is the first time I've seen you watch Democracy Now! Is it because you'd rather critique mainstream media for your audience than watch something more aligned with your worldview? Yes, but I also do watch Democracy Now! Periodically. The reason why I don't watch Democracy Now! That frequently, however, is because I agree with most of it. So my commentary is almost identical. So it's basically rehashing the same points over and over again. Guys, don't say he's a dumbass. He's just asking a normal question. I know tensions are high right now because there's a lot of like random weirdos in the chat, but they've cleared away seemingly. So, you know, the coast is clear.
Your Social Security. That's really what we're looking at here.
I'm also a funder of Democracy Now! And a supporter for a very long time.
What Doge is up to.
Lindsay Owens, we're going to have to leave it there. And I just want to give Waleed the last word. 10 seconds. What should people do right now?
This is my favorite part of Democracy Now! Is when Amy has to wrap it up just abruptly.
Go to indivisible.org and visit their Senate office and demand an investigation of Elon Musk, and that Senate business should come to a halt.